This is the world-famous Matterhorn Mountain at Disneyland. In this episode of Fresh Baked Disney, we'll be looking at the secrets and history of this legendary attraction. The Matterhorn was built in 1959, 4 years after the park opened, and was considered to be the first thrill ride to appear at Disneyland. Until then, the closest thing to an e-ticket would have been the Jungle Cruise, maybe, or the Rocket to the Moon. At the time, the Matterhorn was considered a major innovation in the world of roller coasters. Most coasters then were of a wooden variety with large, sweeping turns. But with its new steel tubular design, the track could be bent into much tighter turns. Ironically, the steel design was considered at the time to be a much quieter, much softer ride than a wooden coaster. You won't hear anyone today, though, saying that the Matterhorn was either quiet or a soft ride. The Matterhorn was built on an area of land known previously as Lookout Mountain, and before that, Holiday Hill. That hill, which looks to be mostly dirt, is dirt from the construction of Sleeping Beauty's castle. It was basically just a green belt with benches and walkways and was used as a picnic area. Now, just try to imagine that today. A space in Disneyland just for grass and sitting. Yeah. The inspiration for the attraction came from the Disney film Third Man on the Mountain. The design, though, did evolve from a simple toboggan ride down a hill into a full-fledged roller coaster down a mountain. There was even thought given to using a wild mouse design, which is something similar to what you might see with Goofy Sky School today. The name of the mountain also evolved. The name went from Snow Hill to Snow Mountain, Mount Disneyland, Disneyland Mountain, Sorcerer's Mountain, Magic Mountain, Fantasy Mountain, Echo Mountain, the Volterhorn, and finally Matterhorn Mountain. Now, no feature about the secrets and history of the Matterhorn would be complete, I guess, without mentioning that there's a basketball court inside of the mountain. So we'll get that out of the way. But I will give you a little more rumor and speculation. It was thought to have been put in there so that they could call it a sports arena. By doing so, it supposedly enabled them to build it as high and as large as they did. This is not true, as there are no codes to this extent, nor could a single basketball hoop ever be considered enough to define a building as a sports arena. Nope, it's just a simple break room for mountain climbers and cast members. Speaking of mountain climbers, there are actual mountaineers who do scale the mountain. This is a tradition that goes all the way back to the attraction's beginnings, though they did stop for a little while. It was brought back in 2012 when the refurb was completed. In addition to it being the first thrill ride at Disneyland and also being the first tubular steel track roller coaster in the world, it was also the first roller coaster to have multiple cars on the track at the same time. This was made possible through multiple brake zones along the track. Oh, and it's also the first roller coaster to use water as a means of slowing down the car at the end of the ride. Today, the Matterhorn looks like this, but when originally constructed, it looked quite a bit different. The first thing you notice is the obvious hole right through the middle of the mountain through which the Skyway traveled. Secondly, you'll notice that there were many other holes at the bottom half of the mountain. Some holes were eventually filled in, while others appear to have morphed into more of a chasm. The inside also has seen quite a bit of change. Originally, it was pretty bare inside, actually. There was just track. There was no snow or ice caves or anything like that like we see today. And also the sleds have evolved. They were originally single cars that could seat up to 4 people. The original sleds were the design of Disney legend Bob Gurr. Bob Gurr is quoted as having said, "If it moves on wheels at Disneyland, I probably designed it." In 1978, 2 cars were joined together, allowing up to 8 people to ride at once. In 2012, the formerly intimate tandem seats were replaced by 2 cars with 3 individual seats. It's been almost 2 years since this change happened, and people still can't stop talking about how much they miss those old seats. But it wasn't all bad news for the new sleds. The new seating arrangement allowed for a really bitchin' single rider queue. This single rider queue is one of the best in the park, taking a 45 or an hour-long wait and turning it into a 5 or 10-minute wait. Even its location has changed over the years. It wasn't until 1970 that the Matterhorn appeared on the Fantasyland side of the park map. Before then, it was part of Tomorrowland. Another unusual trait of Matterhorn Mountain is that it employs 2 separate tracks running at the same time. The individual tracks are known as the Tomorrowland track and the Fantasyland track. It is commonly believed that the Tomorrowland track is the faster, shorter, and rougher of the 2. The Fantasyland side is considered longer, slower, and smoother. But you won't hear any cast members confirm this. They're asked not to acknowledge this so as to prevent one side from becoming too popular compared to the other. The 2 tracks run parallel several times throughout the ride, and where you can often ride alongside another car. The Matterhorn stands at 147 feet tall, though the ride itself peaks out at 80 feet. It was the tallest structure in the park. In fact, at the time it was the tallest structure in all of Orange County. Each side has their own Yeti and a shared second one. That Yeti's name is Harold, and I have no idea why that is. For those interested in hidden Mickeys, the Matterhorn is home to one of the largest hidden Mickeys in the park, hiding in plain sight and missed by many. The famous safety spiel,
"Please remain seated with your seatbelt fastened. Permanecer sentados, por favor,"
is used in the intro to the No Doubt song Tragic Kingdom. The attraction is also referenced in Randy Newman's song I Love LA, and most recently in the new Mickey short Yodelberg, as well as Harold and the bobsleds. There is no other Matterhorn attraction at any other Disney park in the world. In 1994, as part of the makeover that closed some of those huge holes in the mountain, the Wells Expedition was added. This was a tribute to Frank Wells, the president of the Disney company at the time, and he had died earlier that year in a mountain climbing accident. In 2012, the Matterhorn underwent a complete makeover. In addition to the previously mentioned change from tandem seats to single seats, the mountain itself was redressed. Previously, the mountain had grown increasingly snowier due to years of repainting. It was mostly snow. But in 2012, the mountain was completely scraped and repainted, but with a thinner complexion of snow, especially on its southern side. This was done to more closely resemble how the real Matterhorn Mountain looks. Before 2012, the snow was simply white paint, but with the makeover, Imagineers came up with a method of mixing glass beads into the paint so that snow reflected sunlight, as real snow does. And finally, and this is a perfect example of the true Disney way, this last year Disney even let us enjoy some classic yodeling right there on the Matterhorn Mountain. Take that, every other roller coaster in the world. And those are the best secrets and history of the Matterhorn according to Fresh Baked. From the warmth of the two passenger sleds to a newfangled single rider queue, the Matterhorn is no doubt a legendary Disneyland attraction. And from all of us at Fresh Baked, thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe, and until next time, Fresh Baked!
Greetings from the Matterhorn. Next we have a song about that famous wildflower that grows